Broadcast. Welcome to Zaner MarketCast pre-WASDE update for October. I am Joe Nikruto. I'm here with...
And I'm Dan Hussey.
Dan Hussey, how you doing out there?
Good, Joe. How about yourself?
Terrific. I'm going to take a drink of water right here on camera.
Well, we are definitely enjoying this weather. I think the summertime is coming to a close, but I don't know about you guys. I love football weather. This fall, crisp pumpkin spice latte. I can get used to this.
80 degrees tomorrow, right? 80
Crazy,
degrees.
right?
So
we're like out of the freezer into the frying pan. But
get out the bush lights. Sorry about that, because you are a dad, no bush lights for you. So get out a nice can of carbonated soda and get your fold out chair and get in that backyard and enjoy yourself. Let's take a look over here. Oh, yep. Still fully stocked on bush lights in the corn can. So we're good here at the Zaner Ag Hedge headquarters.
Yeah, and a little comment there on the weather, right? We are roaring through harvest, and those harvest pressures seem to be mounting, and maybe that's a reason that we'll be looking at later today. But we've got a WASDE report coming up here, and some numbers
we start
to
with
go
that,
through.
Dan, before we jump into those numbers, we want all of the listeners, all three of the listeners, all the viewers to know that if you're interested, and new viewers, we want all the people that don't watch to know. So we got to figure out a way to tell them too. But if you are interested in hearing about grain market price action daily and how that price action could work to your benefit, you must sign up for our Zaner Ag Hedge hotline hosted by expert market analyst Ted Seifert. Totally free, Dan. We always talk about that. Gives you a chance to connect with us personally if you have any specific questions about the markets or agricultural commodities in general. If you're interested in learning more about how price action works and how to make that price action work for you, it's a perfect way to take that first step. Link is in the description below to sign up. Totally free, zero commitment.
That's right. You get to call in on your leisure, listen to it when it works for you, and get everything that Ted had to say about the markets, and sometimes you or I, at your fingertips. I mean, what more could you ask for, right?
Can't beat it. And if they don't like it, we'll give them their money back, right?
Absolutely.
Dan, you mentioned we're looking at October crop supply demand report estimates. The copy that I have in hand came from Reuters, right?
Special thanks over to Karen Braun and all the work she does compiling this stuff. Good friend of of ours. Corn yields, bean yields, pretty heavy, big numbers there, right? Karen also noted, I think we discussed earlier, that there is no change to acreage on this report. So we can argue all we want about that, but it's not going to matter for anything tomorrow. We're going to have to wait till November or even later to see revisions at this point, right, to those numbers. But the yields that are coming in are the big focal point here, and how those are going to be shifting and changing that production and ultimately ending stock number right at the end of the day.
Not huge ranges, right? Not huge ranges here.
No, corn yields 183.4 bushels per acre in the average trade guess, 181.6 to 184.5 in the range. This is all compared to in September, the 183.6 number there. So, I mean, okay, 0.2 billion or 2.2 bushels an acre off the big number, not a huge change to production as we can see there. Corn production coming in at 15.155 billion bushels. Average trade guess there was only about a 250 million bushel range, so we're pretty tight. And we're not that far off, only 31 million. Yeah, 31 million bushel lower than where that September guess was. So, I guess a 0.2 reduction in yields equates to only a 30 million, reduction across the production number. It doesn't leave us with much to think about or chew on into this report tomorrow. So, I would personally take that as the trade's almost looking for a bit of a push, maybe a little bit of a bullish against, our old numbers kind of expectation. In other words, tighter production numbers. But I don't know about you. I don't know if like that much of a change would be enough to change, the chart, right? Would that be, if we come in with, that yield, is that substantial new information? Not to me.
183.4 in corn, and try as they might some spots on Facebook, right? We watch the Facebook stuff from time to time. I don't even, there's not even a whisper number here, is there?
No.
I mean, like 183.4, it seems pretty straightforward. So, I guess that's why they call it a surprise. If we see something tomorrow, they're going to try to lower carry in and change exports against that. I thought I saw ADM say, but not to any material degree. And so this 183.4, we'll see. Some folks, again, talking, corn yields in certain spots, not great, just okay. But other people in certain spots talking, and, in the eye, we talked about the eye in the sky. The satellites had said in places where you grow corn well, it's going to look really, really good. And those are kind of the, anecdotally, that's kind of what we're hearing, don't you think?
Absolutely. And of course, not every acre is going to be the same. We all get that. But you're right. I think this is a year where it's hard to make the argument if you were growing corn and things went well, it's hard to think you're not going to be on the top end of that yield range. It also kind of strikes me that the trade is not willing to wholeheartedly commit to a drop in yields here, right? We're not seeing the trade expecting, there's no one dropping this down to 180. You used to hear guys at 179. There's no one below 180 anymore. And that's a substantial change over the last couple of months that we've seen that trade expectation, I guess, rise. And okay, maybe we're set up for, knock on wood here, surprise with a lower yield number and a bullish report. But you can't hang your hat on that until you see it print.
Anything can happen, but we guarantee that we'll be surprised, right? I mean, that's kind of the that's kind of the gist that I've got coming into this. And we said, you and I talked
done this long enough to know that
before we dove into this is that we didn't really have much in the way of color. We talked to a lot of folks, and things are kind of coming along here. And bean number, would you say the bean number is kind of the same story, right? 4.579 average. Range 4.462 to 4.660. September was 4.586, and we're talking about 4.579 with a yield of 53.1, just off of last month's 53.2. And so super tight bean yields there. And there had been a lot of discussion about maybe dryness toward the end of the season impacting bean yield for a lot of folks. And I suppose that even after tomorrow, there might still be some discussion about that, as we are only, what did Ted see from the sky yesterday? 50% maybe?
50%.
Yeah. So,
and that's also what, the USDA and other things have told us. So it's being confirmed, right? Third party evaluations of that harvest completion, right, are coming through about the same. So we're past the hump, right? You're over the hurdle in terms of an into peak harvest. I will say anecdotally, right, from my own experience in our neck of the woods, just west of me, some farmland I go and check out every once in a while, my own little crop watch. I was shocked how quickly the beans dried and have already been harvested. Like, very shocked. Before October 1st, let's put it that way, this one field I observed. And I think that late dryness that you're speaking to was, what I witnessed was an exact result of that. In my neck of the woods, where I didn't really think we got that dry, but, I guess it wasn't, we never really got that wet the whole summer either. It was just kind of that perfect, right, that perfect amount of rain, it felt like the whole time through, with the exception of some places like Iowa. You guys got very wet, in Minnesota. I'm just talking about my neck of the woods there, right? That's me, my backdoor weather talk, and I'm done with that for the day. But agreed.
You're right on the money, because you are right on the, at the top end of what many people consider to be the garden spot, right? So
right. You would have thought that these acres were the best producing acres in the country. I'm serious. Between where I could drive with my car for an hour, wow, it was looking really good. I mean, really good this year.
For sure. And so in terms of surprises, do you see anything in the ending stocks numbers that could come in differently? I haven't heard anybody say,
no. You don't have the massive exports to hang our hats on and say that, hey, we need to be adjusting exports and demand is strong and all these things. Crude oil, ethanol haven't been rip roaring. So there isn't a demand side of the equation we can hang our hat on and say, oh, we need to nibble away on that ending stock and say that, because we're not changing yields and production all too much on this report, the only way we change that ending stock, right, is through demand. And it's just not there. And analysts are certainly not penciling it in any real way. We're seeing some exports, right? Flash sales from China. It's all a good thing, but I mean, this time last year and in the past, we would have 500 million, metric ton flash sales at times, and they would turn your head. We have not seen that at these prices, and it makes you wonder where that value to the commercial buyer exists. And that's it. If we're into peak harvest pressure, it'll be interesting to see what the technicals do on these charts after this report wraps.
And so if we look at ranges for corn and bean ending stocks in terms of billions of bushels, and wheat as well, average for wheat 0.819 off of September's 0.828. Okay, and tight range there as well. Corn 1.9, and these are U.S. ending stocks, right? So corn 1.962. Now anything below 2, you start talking about the idea that the balance sheet may be tightening. Corn exports have been pretty good, right? We're okay so far this year. So you're going to come into a 1.962. I don't know. Maybe there's a surprise there tomorrow. I don't know. Off of that 2.057 from September, from last month. And then your bean number still very comfortable at 0.549.
And anything above, once I get above a 4 on that, below 4, I start to get interested in the 3s and the 2s. Above 4, beans start to, look like we get a ground pile. And that's a traditional stock to usage ratio there that dictates where that price can go. But yeah, 550, million bushels there, saving one off potentially in this report doesn't do a lot to turn my head in this environment.
And so that's kind of the you look at, and again, anecdotally, we've been hearing a lot about people just selling beans right off the combine, right? And so what I wonder is, when do we start to see some erosion and some true harvest pressure, because these facilities are taking on so many beans? I'm a little nervous about that. But sort of fundamentally,
that's a perfect segue into the technical chart. Are we in fact maybe seeing that in soybeans already? It's kind of crazy. It's ahead of this report. I was anticipating we might get a little bit of a buy the rumor, sell the news into this WASDE, but it's turning into anything but.
Got kind of quiet today, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did.
Got kind of quiet. We opened at 10.19 3/4. The high was 10.25.5. And with that weakness early on, that mid-morning rally, I thought, well, maybe we have something. 10.25.5.
Right.
And then fell apart again. Low was 10.11 3/4. Last trade 10.14 3/4, down 5.5. Funds, just as an aside, Dan, funds down 40, or not down, but short 44,000 contracts. Still, it's not a huge short position, but still short. Right.
Notable, right? I mean, it's fuel for the fire if a short covering rally wants to begin, but if they lean into it, they're also the reason that we'd be selling off here.
Tell me what you see with the moving averages.
Yeah, 18-day moving average. We broke below, unfortunately, earlier this week, and we have yet to really test it as resistance. Is still above around 1034. That's kind of my line in the sand where I'd get maybe a little more excited and maybe think we could head back towards, the highs of the month. Unfortunately, today's price action was inside for beans, so in a vacuum, that doesn't tell us much. But being in a little bit of a bear flag, sitting on the support, which has been that 55-day moving average down around 1014, not a good look. We also broke below that upward sloping trend line that we've been holding since August. Today and yesterday are kind of flagging below. This market really needs to pick itself up by the bootstraps and reverse, if not, because otherwise this looks like the start of a downtrend. You hate to say it, but we have lower lows and lower highs leading into 2 days of inside price action. The trader in me says momentum's going to take this market lower. Break of the 1010. Why aren't you testing $10 and below $10 again? There is not much on this chart to hang your hat on before the contract lows down there at 955 even. So
early morning analyst at 8 a.m. that I like to watch. Seems like a nice fella. Continues to mention that he believes traders want to buy. Let me rephrase that. 50-day moving average comes in around 1010. thinking that
Mhm.
maybe there's some fundamental buying down there.
Something there. There
Yeah.
definitely is. For 3 days, we're holding this 55, 50-day moving average range of support. I mean, you can't ignore it, right? It's support
Kind of just
until it's
laying
not.
on it, right? Laying on the
Yeah,
1010.
it's
And
support until it's not.
so you got a low from 9/11 from last month that comes in about 995 and a half. That sort of feels like a target. And if you do get below that $10 number, you know, and you start to gather momentum, as you mentioned, it seems to me, and I'm not real good at predicting the future, but if you get down below, if we start chewing into that 10 number, this market gets kind of heavy. And you think about harvest pressure. The one fundamental thing that I have been talking a lot about is it's very, very dry in Brazil, exceedingly dry. It's been very dry and very hot. You look at a drought map for Brazil, it's very red, dark red, but the forecast is getting very wet, right? And they're saying, okay, your monsoon rains. And as far as the forecasts are concerned, those rains might as well already even happen. They're speaking about them almost in past tense.
Right.
And so market is getting heavy. And if it does rain, and then you begin the narrative about the crop that the Brazilians are gonna offer the world, that is another, another point.
On the back of harvest pressure, you've got now a weather market to have to deal with, and not the kind of weather market we want.
The kind of weather market we want.
The wrong kind of weather market.
Corn. We opened the day 420. These are all daily numbers, Dan, right? When we do these are not weekly numbers. We opened the day December corn 421. The high was 424, low 418. Hell of a range here. What is it? A 6-point range, six penny range in corn. Pre-WASDE report, but it's almost like these ranges are anticipating some sort of, like, well, we're not sure what's going to happen here tomorrow, but I don't know how that's the case.
Definitely an air of uncertainty, right? You've got corn that was kind of stuck in the middle, I think directionless, while wheat was rallying and beans were heavy this last week. Today's the first day where corn's starting to give you a little bit of cause for concern, although still an outside day lower. That means we went above yesterday's high. We tested a 100-day moving average as resistance up around 424. We then got slammed down to lows of the day, which is right in the 18-day moving average at 418 half. I mean, these markets are actually really technically kind of being bounced around like ping pong balls. It's almost like fundamentals are not the concern, and the trade is just going with really what are just way too. I mean, you and I joke about it. We talk about these as the interns like trades because they're so simple that like the most uneducated, simple trader uses, right? And these moving averages to trade off of. Anyway, jokes aside.
Funds short 75,000 contracts. What I would call your attention to, you mentioned the 50-day, the 18-day. So we're bounded by the 15. We're bounded by the 18 at 418. We're bounded by the 50-day at 407. But if you look just to the left on this chart, there is quite a range that we had there for a week and a half. 416 high, 397 low. You think that that's going to be support?
We definitely have an upward sloping trend line that comes in around 412 as well. You'd hate to see a test of $4, but 418 and 3/4 or 418 half, whatever, the 18-day for right now is support until it's not. Much like that 55-day on that we're talking about on the beans, it is support until it's not. As much as it looks terrible, and today's close looks like one of the worst closes we've had in a recent history, because everything's looks just bad, at least for beans and corn. It doesn't continue lower from here.
I almost misspoke, or I did misspeak earlier. The ADM guy looking at 410 in December corn, saying that fundamental traders looking
down at that 55
410.
Day.
Yeah, 410 is
or
the number.
50
Technical
day,
traders
whatever.
maybe that 410 number. So we'll see. It feels to me, not the most scientific thing we're going to say all day, but it feels to me like that 410 may be an area of attraction, right? And so we're going to get down there and find out who wants to buy it. The other thing I'm worried about is that the funds really aren't bounded. Short 75,000 contracts, that's no big deal for the funds. They could really, really turn on this thing should they find a reason. And I think then, and you mentioned this, you sort of backed me up on this, is that this 416 and 397 looks like support for as long as it's support, right? If it holds, that's going to be terrific. But if it doesn't hold, I I don't quite see the head and shoulders on the corn chart the way I see it on the bean, the potential head and shoulders, right? You need a right shoulder on the bean chart.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say the words, but you took them out of my mouth. And actually, it's a little more prominent too if you look at those March and Jan contracts, perhaps. But agreed, I see it. I'm assuming you're actually I see two, but the head and shoulders you're referring to, we're going down and creating a neckline around $10. Is that the one we're thinking?
Could very well, and you get some sort of right shoulder here where it bounces up into the overhead and
up into the 18-day perhaps.
Yeah,
around
for sure.
1040.
And we stand here sometimes and say to traders, these may be moments coming up where I know guys are busy. But if it may be time to pay attention to these charts at least on a daily basis, or check in, and if we're not your guy, you got a guy somewhere, check in and see what's going on, because I feel like this has the potential to erode. And then it brings me back to South America. We're all watching weather. We're in a weather market, whether we like it or not. But technically we could see some change here. What else do you think? Did we miss anything about corn, Dan?
No, other than corn has not tested, into its channel support, right? There's maybe a little more support below us. The only thing I would iterate is, right, that falling off that 100-day moving average as resistance does put us technically, right, in a little bit of a fight over the trend. Otherwise, corn, I wish it would listen to wheat.
How about wheat? Open the day 6 even 3/4. High was 609. Seems like any price over 6 is pretty juicy for wheat.
Yeah,
low was 598 and a half.
And I think the first close over 6 again in a week.
Last trade was 603 3/4, up 4 3/4. Funds still short 24,000 contracts. I'm going to say that's neither here nor there. Interesting.
I do actually have a point to add there. If they're only short 24,000, would you think we're so close to that 200-day at 614, and we can put a pin in this question, come back to it? Could they flip long if we're on the push, or if that is the push, and could that be terminal? I don't know. I've been thinking about that today. How much further can they go?
Wouldn't be the first time that Lucy has held the football out for us. You know what I mean? Sure. Yep. I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold it right here. You can kick it, Chuck. I promise. And then all of a sudden we turn these things right back around. Interesting fundamental backdrop. And I'm not sure how much credence to lend this because of the participants, but it seems that the Russians have gathered exporters together, and the market may be a little concerned about that meeting. They want to talk about not exporting wheat the way they have been. Some discussion there about folks giving it away, and they would like, it's looking like Russia's production is not going to be what they had hoped, and so they're concerned about maybe sending too much out for fear of not having enough for themselves. And that is probably something that has to be monitored, even though, when we talk about what the Russians are thinking or doing, it's been difficult lately to lend that any credence fundamentally for any length of time. But, Russia does make up a big part. Isn't that what you would say? You're being very patient, but that's what you would say. You're about to say, if we've been doing this long enough, you're about to say Russia is the wheat market, right? Yep.
You hate to always have to be flippant with those things. Like China is the soybean buyer, right? If they don't want to buy, prices go to zero, right? Well, Russia kind of a wheat player, right? And when they want to play around, things unfortunately are going to do what they do. And unfortunately with Russia, they also throw political issues into it and global conflict too. So what can you do?
So technically, I didn't see anything here that really jumped out at me. 200-day moving average at 614 and a half could be an attraction area. However, 50 days down at 569 and a half. And if the funds come back after it, or it turns out that there's more wheat to be had, it would not surprise me. That 569 isn't as far away as it sounds, right?
No, and I think it's pretty safe to use that 18-day moving average as kind of your line in the sand. I'm not saying trail a stop with it, because if you look, we have gone down and wicked that 18-day over the last month. But truthfully, that has held as a great support line in the sand. That as long as we're above that level, 587 3/4. Thank you. I should be letting everybody know what I'm looking at.
Normally, I'd have
587 3/4 on that 18-day. That has performed and become almost like a trend line against the lows the whole way up to the month of September. To me, that's a very simple way of saying, hey, or indicator or way of defining this trend that so long as we're above that level, we will probably continue higher because it is higher highs and higher lows for 3 days running from the lows of last week. That is, by definition, an uptrend. And we held support, on a little test back below 6. We did hold support, around that 590 area where through the month of September, we fought so hard to break finally through at the start of October. And October has started off as the basically song of will wheat stay above $6 or not?
And that 587 and 3/4 as support, that allows this wheat market to do what wheat does, which is go down and find where the stops are. You would figure that your stops would be tighter to 6 than 87, right? Than 587.
Correct.
And so you look at the chart and say, oh, heck, I'm going to put a 597.5 stop. They come in, take that out, 595, 593, 587 and 3/4.
Even hit 590, right? The nice little round number. Yep.
And back up we go. So I don't know. It's very difficult for me to paint an optimistic picture for wheat, but that 587 and 3/4 number to me, if we hold that, that would tell you that maybe something has changed. It's getting a little droughty too, right? I mean, you look at that drought map today. So maybe we got something.
Yeah, and again, the 200-day has been very clear resistance. I mean, it stopped this market dead in its tracks after effectively a dollar rally off of the lows of August. And so, as long as you're below that level, you also have to wonder if this trend up hasn't been capped. So that's why I bring up that level with what we've seen in the fund category. If you're paying attention to participation of these major speculator in the market and the person with the big money bags that can drop ship, they have been buying this market back up. Their short position has been dwindling and moving back above a major moving average like the 200-day alongside them paring that, maybe even going long. That would be, something to consider and a change in the market dynamic we've seen. I'm not saying it will happen. We're merely pointing out things that you should look out for more clues to the direction the markets might give.
With that, how about a quick mention of what is going on in Florida and North Carolina? Certainly, we're keeping in mind, we're keeping in our prayers all the folks who have been impacted. I can't tell yet, 3 million people without power. We're looking to get kind of a better idea of what the situation is in Florida. But anyway, you slice it, probably not good. Same thing with North Carolina. Looks like they're going to have trouble for quite some time. RFD TV today talking about a lot of southeast ag producers and enterprises, no power, no running water. It's going to be a while before. So just these folks are going through a tough time. Want everybody to know that sincerely we are thinking and hoping that things go as smoothly as possible, as fast as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dan, should we come back
tomorrow? Everyone out there.
Should we come back tomorrow and update everybody about the about WASDE, about what we saw with the WASDE?
Yeah, right. We had a bit of mixed trade, right? I think is the moral of the story across the row crops. It was a pre-report trade day. I think it felt like that, looked like that, smelled like that to me. So we're gonna see what the number comes out tomorrow. You let the dust settle, and we can react to what the market's given us.
I'll meet you back here tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, thanks for joining us. It's been great hosting you here. But if you've got more questions, you can always get in contact with us. Leave us a like or a comment in this video below. You can also check out our daily market call-in with Ted Seifried. You can check out his recording every day. Sign up in the links provided for that too if you're interested. We're always here to have a discussion and let us know what we can do to help you make your way through this price action. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll be back with you tomorrow with more WASDE updates and as price action develops.
See you tomorrow.